Yo, what is up guys? Ethan here back in another video, and today we've returned with college football predictions. As today, we're going to be going over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Now, heading into this season for Notre Dame, the massive headline was Brian Kelly leaving to go to LSU. After Lincoln Riley news came out, this was the next big shockwave that really sent the coaching carousel into a humongous frenzy. But Notre Dame, you hired one of my favorite coaches in all of college football in Marcus Freeman. But Notre Dame, you're losing quite a bit of starters. You rank 104th in returning starters from last season with 57. 45% of your starters return, which is 118th in college football. On the defensive side, it is better as you've returned 69%, which is 57th in the nation. But overall, quite a bit of Notre Dame starters are leaving, but I don't even know if that's going to be a main issue, because your main starter on offense last year was Jack Coan leading at quarterback, and he was iffy. The main issue about this Notre Dame team last year was the quarterback play. They probably could have made a college football playoff appearance if the quarterback play was very consistent, in which it wasn't. Jack Coan is now in the NFL, so this quarterback situation is still up in the air. It's mainly between sophomore Tyler Buchner and then junior Drew Pine. I'm probably going to assume it's going to be Tyler Buchner at the helm, in which I hope he does improve because he really wasn't that good last year. He's definitely going to improve off of last season, as he's going to have the keys to the offense. But it's going to be really intriguing to see how Tommy Rees uses him in this offense. You lose your starting running back in Kyron Williams, as he's now in the NFL as well. But Chris Tyree ended the season very well, so I think he's actually only going to develop from here. And he's going to shock a lot of people, and he's going to be a really good running back in college football for this upcoming season. Logan Diggs, who's behind Tyree, he's probably going to get a quality snaps as well, so look out for Diggs. And then as we go to this wide receiver core, you do lose your number one target in Kevin Austin Jr., But Notre Dame, they really didn't have a key player last year at wide receiver. You just had good depth, and that depth does come back. So overall, as a wide receiver core, they're definitely going to develop. Braden Lindsey comes back as a graduate senior. He's going to improve. Same thing with Avery Davis. He's going to improve. Lorenzo Styles, he was a freshman last year. He's coming in as a sophomore. I'm really intrigued to see how he will play in this offense. And then another breakout player who broke out during spring camp, Jaden Thomas. I think he's going to be playing all over the field. Was Jaden Thomas. I do think he's going to be playing in the outside, in the slot. So definitely look out for Jaden Thomas, as if he does develop, he could be a true starter by the end of the season. This offensive line at Notre Dame is always great. The main guy is Jarrett Patterson, as he's a top 5 guard in college football. And then we can't go without talking about Michael Mayer, a guaranteed top 2 tight end in college football. He's going to be even more involved in this offense, and I have a feeling Tyler Buchner is going to be getting a lot of targets towards his way, so look out for Michael Mayer. This defense as a whole, very, very good. The main guy on this defense is Isaiah Foskey, a returning edge rusher. He was amazing last year, as he had 11 sacks. He's definitely going to be a top 5 edge rusher in college football this year, in my opinion. And then your second best transfer is a Northwestern transfer in Brandon Joseph. Kyle Hamilton was a top tier safety last year for Notre Dame. He's now with the Baltimore Ravens. So you already have his replacement in Brandon Joseph, as Joseph is a top 10 safety in college football. So is Hamilton going to be a big loss? We'll see. But Brandon Joseph is definitely going to be a big impact with this secondary. The defensive line's good. The linebacking core is very, very experienced, as J.D. Bertrand and Jack Kaiser both come back. I definitely messed up those names. And then Bo Bauer as a graduate senior. So tons of experience on this defense. In this secondary, you have Raymond Henderson, DJ Brown, Cam Hart all coming in. Jaden Mickey and Jaden Bellamy as true freshmen could be having a day one impact as well. So overall, the defense is going to be carrying this Notre Dame team, and depending on how good this Notre Dame defense is, they definitely have playoff potential. And as you look at this schedule, it is very, very tough. Everyone says Notre Dame has an easy schedule. It's not the case this year. The first game is probably the biggest game on the schedule at Ohio State, the 7:30 primetime ABC game. And I think Ohio State, off of last season, is going to be furious. They had playoff expectations and disappointed everybody, and they barely won the Rose Bowl versus a good Utah team. I think Ohio State's going to come into this game guns blazing. I think the staff of Ohio State's going to be a lot more experienced than Notre Dame. I have a feeling Tyler Buchner's really going to have a down game in this one, as he's going to struggle in his first true game starting. The Buckeyes are going to win this game very easily, and Notre Dame's going to be furious about this. Next game, you host Marshall, and I'm a big Charles Huff fan for Marshall, but Marshall does not even, they're not even close to an amount of talent that Notre Dame has. Notre Dame's going to handle Marshall with relatively ease. That third game, you host Cal. Justin Wilcox is a really good coach, but the same thing as Marshall, Cal does not have enough talent to compete with this Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame will also handle Cal pretty easily at home. Now you probably have a nice little trap game on the schedule, as you have to go to Chapel Hill to play UNC. When I got in, at the very early part, I was like, okay, UNC is going to win this game in an upset. But the more and more I dove into this Notre Dame team, and the more and more I looked at North Carolina, I just think Notre Dame's defense is going to win this game for the Fighting Irish. It may be close, but I think Notre Dame at the end of the day, because of this star-stellar defense, will find a way to win this game. Then you have a bye week, and then you have that big neutral site game in Vegas, circle on your map, for the Shamrock Series versus BYU. BYU has tons of returning production from last year coming in. Really good coaching staff with the Kalani Sitake. And this is going to be a fantastic game to watch. Super fun game. But I think at the end of the day, kind of similar to how the UNC game is, and probably for the remainder of these big-time wins, Notre Dame's defense is going to show out and win this game. This is going to be a close game. I'm a big fan of BYU, but I think the defense is going to win this game. I think at this point in the season, the quarterback situation will be chosen, and that quarterback will definitely be producing. I'm just going to assume it's Tyler Buchner. Buchner is going to get his way going. He's going to be very fluent. Chris Tyree's going to be involved, as BYU's just not going to be able to stop Notre Dame. Close game, Irish win. And after a big-time win versus BYU, you go home and play Stanford. I think this game is going to be a little bit closer than people anticipate. Notre Dame has had a few good, tough games back-to-back, even with the bye in there. Stanford is returning a lot of production, and David Shaw, even though I'm not big on Stanford, he is a good coach. But I think Notre Dame will win this game. Don't be surprised if Stanford keeps it close, though. Next game, you host UNLV. We're not wasting your time. Notre Dame wins this one. Next game, you go to Syracuse. And Syracuse has pulled off a lot of upsets at home over the last few years. This is just not going to be one of those upsets. Notre Dame will win this one. And then if it's not Ohio State, this is probably the big-time game on this schedule. Home versus Clemson. In 2020, as we all know, Notre Dame was undefeated, and they defeated the #1 Tigers at home. Will it be the same outcome this year? And I think yes. I think Clemson's struggles from last year are somewhat going to be taken over in this one. I think Clemson's offense is not going to be that good to play better than Notre Dame's defense. I think Marcus Freeman's going to come out this game as even the biggest game on the schedule up to this point was at Ohio State, and it is your biggest game. And after you got blown up at the Horseshoe, you're done. This is a must-win game for the Irish if you want to have any playoff hopes, and I think Notre Dame will win this game. Next game, you have another neutral site game versus Navy in Baltimore. Notre Dame in this rivalry has owned Navy. They're ahead in the series by 70 games. Notre Dame wins this one. That second to last game, you host Boston College. And as you know, if you watch my Clemson predictions, I have Boston College upsetting Clemson. If this game was at Boston College, I would really have to consider an upset. But this crowd here in South Bend is going to be a little too much. Notre Dame wins. And now the final game on the schedule at USC. USC is a much improved team. You got Lincoln Riley, you got Caleb Williams, you got Travis Dye, Mario Williams, etc., etc., etc. Man, oh man, this is going to be a thrilling game to watch. a top tier defense versus a Lincoln Riley offense, that is a recipe for a great game. Well, at least early, if that's the scenario. But personally, I just don't see any way Notre Dame's offense can win this game. And then on the other end, I think USC's offense is going to outperform Notre Dame's defense in their final game. It's going to be a little too much. The secondary is going to be focused on the wide receivers. You're going to have Travis Dye. He's a great receiving running back. And if not, probably Notre Dame's main issue on the defensive line is run stopping. You can run through that Notre Dame defensive line. I just have a feeling USC is going to find a way to win this game. Also, with the coaching matchup, it hurts to say, but Lincoln Riley is a better head coach than Marcus Freeman up to this point. USC, this is probably going to be a must-win if there's any hope for them to win the Pac-12 or even the college football playoff, depending on the record up to this point. This is most likely going to be a must-win game for the Trojans, and the Trojans will pull it off. And looking at this schedule, I have Notre Dame going 10-2 with losses at Ohio State and then at USC. Now, you could say, okay, let's say Notre Dame wins at USC. If that's the scenario, I still think you will lose another game if that's home versus Clemson, a neutral site game versus BYU, or at North Carolina. I think Ohio State's a guaranteed loss, and then you will lose one of the games versus UNC, BYU, Clemson, or USC. In this case, it's going to be at USC, as they are probably the best. This is probably the most likely game they will lose. So, what is your prediction for Notre Dame? Let me know in the comments section below. Like, share, subscribe, push notifications on so you don't miss a video. And like always, have a good day. Peace out.